Lesson 1 for September 28 through to October 4, Making Sense of History, Zerubbabel and Ezra. Wednesday, October 2, Artaxerxes' Decree. Question, read Ezra chapter 7, verses 11 to 28. What were the components of the king's decree? Why were these instructions important for the people of Israel? Ezra 7, beginning at verse 11. This is a copy of the letter that King Artaxerxes gave Ezra the priest, the scribe, expert in the words of the commandments of the Lord and of his statutes to Israel. Artaxerxes, King of kings, to Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law of the God of heaven, perfect peace, and so forth. I issue a decree that all those of the people of Israel and the priests and Levites in my realm who volunteer to go up to Jerusalem may go with you. And whereas you, being sent by the king and his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem with regard to the law of your God which is in your hand, and whereas you are to carry the silver and gold which the king of his counselors has freely offered to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, and whereas all the silver and gold that you may find in all the province of Babylon, along with the freewill offering of the people and the priests, are to be freely offered for the house of their God in Jerusalem, now therefore be careful to buy with this money bulls, rams, and lambs, with their grain offering and their drink offerings, and offer them on the altar of the house of your God in Jerusalem. And whatever seems good to you and your brethren to do with the rest of the silver and the gold, do it according to the will of your God. Also, the articles that are given to you for the service of the house of your God, deliver in full before the God of Jerusalem, and whatever more may be needed for the house of your God, which you may have occasion to provide, pay for it from the king's treasury. And I, even I, Artaxerxes the king, issue a decree to all the treasurers who are in the region beyond the river, that whatever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven, may require of you, let it be done diligently, up to 100 talents of silver, 100 cores of wheat, 100 baths of wine, 100 baths of oil, and salt without prescribed limit. Whatever is commanded by the God of heaven, let it diligently be done for the house of the God of heaven. For why should there be wrath against the realm of the king and his sons? Also we inform you that it shall not be lawful to impose tax, tribute, or custom on any of the priests, Levites, singers, gatekeepers, Nethinim, or servants of this house of God. And you, Ezra, according to your God-given wisdom, set magistrates and judges who may judge all the people who are in the region beyond the river, all such as know the laws of your God, and teach those who do not know them. Whoever will not observe the law of your God and the law of the king, let judgment be executed speedily on him, whether it be death, or banishment, or confiscation of goods, or imprisonment. Blessed be the Lord God of our fathers, who has put such a thing as this in the king's heart, to beautify the house of the Lord which is in Jerusalem, and has extended mercy to me before the king and his counselors, and before all the king's mighty princes. So I was encouraged, as the hand of the Lord my God was upon me, and I gathered leading men of Israel to go up with me. The decree of Artaxerxes resembles Cyrus's first decree. The king counsels everyone who is willing, especially from the priestly lines, to make the journey to Jerusalem. Although, according to the Marashu historical documents, the majority of the Jews ultimately remained in Persia, as demonstrated in the story of Esther. There were those who had waited for the opportunity to start a new life in the homeland of their ancestors. The king directed most of his comments to the treasurers of the Trans-Euphrates territory. The treasurers were to provide Ezra with whatever he needed to restore the city and to beautify the house of the Lord, as it says in Ezra 7:27. Ultimately, the king commissioned Ezra to ensure the proper observance of the law of God as well as the law of the land by setting up the judicial system. The order and organization that this command would produce are important aspects of any society. Moreover, the king made it easier for Ezra and the Israelites to restore their homeland. Does the king's concern for the rebuilding of the city and the temple indicate that he had become a believer in Ezra's God? Artaxerxes calls God the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, in verse 15. The terminology the king uses about the God of Israel implies that he saw the Lord as just another local deity who needed to be appeased by gifts. He didn't want this local God to be angry with him and his sons, verse 23. Additionally, we should note that 457 BC also is the year of an Egyptian revolt against the Persian government. Thus, it is likely that the amenable actions of the king were designed to gain loyalty from the province of Judah. Unfortunately, despite the interaction the king had with both Ezra and Nehemiah, it didn't make him a believer in God. At least, nothing in the text indicates that he had become one, which means that the Lord can use even unconverted people to do his will on earth. And so to finish the day, even amid so much pain and suffering, how can we learn to trust in God's sovereignty over the world as seen here? You have been listening to a reading of the Adult Sabbath School Bible Study Guide by Dr. Percy Harold from Queensland, Australia. This service is brought to you by Hope Channel, the Sabbath School Department, and Christian Services for the Blind. Remember, God is always faithful.